Welcome to Deep Speak, where we ask the questions to the answers of the universe.
I asked the question, do you think time seems to go faster the older you get? And I asked it, I think last night, so we didn't get many people responding, but somebody said absolutely. And then Daniel said yes. And then we had 3 likes. So, but I feel like since I've gotten older, I feel like time just seems to go faster. Like the days go faster. And if you have had elderly friends or family members that are in their 80s, 90s, right? And you think what does grandma do all day long, right?
Yeah.
I've always thought that what do you do all day long? You're retired now. What do you do? And maybe she knit a little or tended to her plants outside or something, and then she was ready for bed. And that's a lot of times they end up saying things like that. It was I woke up, I made breakfast, I had some coffee, I read the newspaper, I watered my plants, and then I went to bed. And it was how did it take you all day to do that? What? And a lot of times they wake up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And it's what do you do? Aren't you bored all day long if you don't have a job, you don't have kids, you don't have, things that you're doing? I don't know. Yeah. I just thought it was always interesting to me. I thought maybe it just took people longer to do things. It took them 4 hours to get out of bed, which takes me 4 hours to get out of bed in the morning, scrolling through Facebook. But I think, and then as I started to get older, and I'm not that old, I'm only 47, but I feel like time just seems to go so much faster. I will wake up and then it's wait a minute, why am I going to bed now? I feel like I only got 3 things done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started experiencing that. And I thought, does time, because I remember back when I was in my 20s and I was going to school, going to work, dealing with the kids, cleaning the house, doing the grocery shopping, starting a business. I was doing all these sort of things I'm how did I fit all of that in one day? Because I have no idea how that was even possible compared to today, where I feel like the time just goes so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's a race against time. And I don't know if it's because as you start to go downhill or graduate from your youth into your adulthood, that you're now you're the clock is ticking, so to speak, and pun intended, where now the death is looming at your doorstep. So then time goes a lot faster because you're no, I don't want it to come. When you're waiting for a vacation, all of a sudden it's a vacation is a week away. It's oh my God, are we there yet? Or
getting out of work,
are we there yet? And it seems to go so slow. But then when you don't want vacation to end, all of a sudden vacation, that same amount of time, a week on vacation, feels it goes super fast because you don't want it to end. So there's some sense of resistance there. So maybe the more that we resist energetically something, getting somewhere or going somewhere or even death, that maybe time speeds up. I don't know if it's because we're focused on it, or law of attraction.
I don't know what it is either. I don't think it's just our conscious focus. I think people that lean more materials would probably say that, right? Well, it's just your brain's focus on it, making a pattern out of it. And I don't think I think that's part of it, but I don't think that's all of it.
Yeah.
I do think that it is not just our perception, but I do think that it's possible that we might actually be able to bend space-time somehow, make it go faster or slower.
Yeah.
And that could be law of attraction.
Well, that does come back to consciousness and not just awareness consciousness, but our soul perception. Well, I guess same thing. I don't know. It's so hard. Consciousness is such a hard thing.
Yeah.
But how we're perceiving something, how we perceive time from our own, that's all we have is our own perspective. That's why we're open-minded skeptics, because we're open-minded to everybody's perceptions of things. However, we're skeptical of what we choose to believe and what we choose to be our truth or our reality. And I think that's a really healthy way of being. We can only talk about time from our own perspective, our own lens, and our own perception of it. We can't really talk about it from anyone else's perspective.
Right.
We can relate to it. We can discuss what we think it feels like. Well, we don't know. Has anyone ever played the Sims game? sometimes I feel like I relate life to Sims, or I try to always relate it to Sims. And I know that sounds really silly, but if life is a simulation, if it was, then it's funny how similar the Sims games can be.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go to sleep at night, the time will speed up. Like, and an hour in Sims life is like a minute in our life. And it relates to God and how he says, his time is very different than our time. 1,000 years on earth is like a blink of an eye for God.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about God being a higher dimension or being outside of time space, then that would make sense, right? Although I do believe all time exists all time with God, and that's why he's, omniscient.
You've just heard a deep bite from our Deep Speak podcast. To hear the full episode, head on over to deepspeakpodcast.com. While you're there, come hang out with us and join the Deep Speak community at the Deep Speak Club, our members-only area, where you can find exclusive members-only content, courses, chats, merchandise, and more. Come get deep with us at deepspeakpodcast.com. See you all there.